call to order the Board of Supervisors meetings for the town of Sevastopol for Monday, May 21st, 2018 at 7 p.m. Would you please join me in a pledge called the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Amy, if you would, a roll call to establish a quorum, please.
Supervisor John Stavenus.
Here.
Supervisor Linda Waite.
Here.
Chairman Dan Wolfel.
Here.
Supervisor Jim Nellen.
Here.
Supervisor Tony Haynes.
Here.
All right, next item, and we'll go in reverse order. Amy, how would you like to introduce yourself and run down here and then go out in the audience?
Perfect. Amy Fluck, Clerk Treasurer, County Road P.
Tony Hayne, Town Supervisor, Matthew Road.
Jim Nellen, Town Supervisor, Lori Lane.
Dan Wolfel, Town Chairman, Park Road.
Linda Waite, Town Supervisor, Bluff Court.
John Stavenus, Town Supervisor, Whitefish Bay Road.
Jim, how about to start with you?
I'm Jim Smith, Pinker Law Firm. I represent Mark McCabe.
Mark McCabe, 5071 Bayshore Drive. Paul Delirious Construction with Mark.
Krista Lutsky, Soil and Water.
Nancy Goldberg, 4250 Glidden Drive.
Joan Nellen, Lori Lane. Karen Brower, Gordon Road.
Katie Ross, Bailey's Harbor.
Jim Anderson, 4426 Highway 57.
Jane Suzuki, Highway 57, 4430.
Nancy Anderson, 4426 Highway 57.
John Deal, Whitefish Bay Road.
Gary Lando, Pepperly Road.
Harlan Londo, Heverly Road.
And?
Patty Chapman, Glidden Drive.
All right. All right, public participation. Someone here would like something they'd like to address for the next few minutes, give them an opportunity, and these are typically on non-agenda items. So are there any comments from anyone in our audience this evening? Yes.
So Karen Brower, representing the Sevastopol School Board. I'm the board liaison for the town of Sevastopol since I'm a resident. Just some updates with what's going on at school. Several Destination Imagination teams arrived safely in Knoxville today to celebrate and compete at the Global Championships. As many of you know, the school district of Sevastopol is known worldwide as a powerhouse in this academic competition, and they'll be returning this Memorial Day weekend, hopefully with some nice hardware in hand as they've done in the past. Tuesday, May 29th is the last day of school for this year's senior class of 36 students who will then be graduating on Sunday, June 3rd. The ceremony will be held in the elementary gym and it starts at 2 o'clock. There are no tickets required, so come out and hear about all the great accomplishments and successes already with this year's graduates. The rest of the district's students and teachers will finish out the school year on Friday, June 8th, thanks to Snowstorm Evelyn. It was supposed to have been the 7th. The Citizens Facility Advisory Committee has been meeting regularly since October to narrow down recommendations for a facility improvement plan. The recommendations that they have come up with will be going out in a flyer in the mail shortly, along with a survey to everyone in the district. Please make sure to complete your survey and return it either via electronically or through the mail. And if you should have any questions on the flyer, don't hesitate calling the district office. On May 29th at 5 o'clock, as well as on May 30th, there will be tours going on at the school if you can't make those dates, and if you haven't toured our facility within the last year or so, please feel free to contact our superintendent, Kyle Lukey, or our district's buildings and grounds director, Rob Plattenbach. So they'll be happy to show you around. Thank you.
One question?
Yes.
You want to go first?
Sure. Well, I'm thinking of school. As we all know, Monday is Veterans Day. And if there are any students, I believe students have to do community service or whatever, but if there are any students that want to help distribute flags later this week, they place them at the veterans' grave sites. I know Bayside Cemetery is one, so they could contact our Veterans Department at the county if anybody's interested in helping out.
I will pass that on to the office. Thank you.
I know the Sevastopol FFA chapter, we had a banquet Sunday evening, and the FFA chapter goes out and helps the veterans groups at a couple different. So So even if they want to get a hold of Dale Carlson.
Okay. And I know I've seen the cemetery across from my street's been Boy Scouts in the past, so.
And we pick them up too.
The survey that's going out, how is it being distributed?
It'll be coming to all box holders in the district.
So if you don't have a mailbox or you're seasonal, you won't more than likely get access.
If you don't have well, you can request one, or I believe you can, I'm not sure if there'll be a link on the district website, but it is gonna go to all box holders within the school district.
One of the things we notice about the newsletter when we send it out is that, surprisingly enough, there's a fairly large number of people here that don't have mail delivered to their home. So it'd be nice if you can figure out a way to gain their input. So that's something that's...
And some of those folks who have reached out to the district already directly, the same happens with the district Pioneer Times newspaper as well.
Yep. All right, good. Anyone else wishing to speak? All right, hearing none. Next thing would be to adopt our agenda, and I assume it was properly noticed, Amy?
The agenda has been properly noticed.
That's not at all surprising. I would need a motion to adopt.
Can we move new business up?
We can do that after we adopt the agenda.
Okay, I make a motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt. All right, motion by John, second by Tony to adopt the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Approval of minutes, Board of Supervisors meeting from April 17th, 2018. Should have all had a chance to take a look at those prior. And if there's nothing needing to be changed, a motion would be in order to accept those.
I will move to approve and accept the minutes of April 17th, 2018.
I second that.
Motion by Linda, second by Jim, to approve the Board of Supervisors meeting minutes from April 17th. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay. First thing we have on our agenda is a special report tonight. We have the Door County Invasive Species Cost Share Program. Krista is here to tell us about that, and so we will give you the floor for the next few minutes.
I appreciate the time. I'll make it quick. I did want to take the opportunity to give the town an update of where we are at with our invasive species program. We do have,
Ooh, it's on.
So this year we anticipate doing inventory again within the county highway right-of-way as well as the town roads. You have a map of 2017, which was last year's inventory, but we do have limited term employees starting at the end of this month, next week. The county highway department will again fund treatments for Phragmites, and this year is new. They're funding treatments for wild parsnip within the county highway right-of-ways. Treatments for wild parsnip have already begun. The contractor selected was Nature Care Ecological. And the invoice will be coming straight to Soil and Water, where we'll be reviewing and adding to our inventory database. We also have some volunteers that are going to be trained by the Door County Invasive Species Team Coordinator to continue to do inventory along the shorelines, and we are still relying on individuals to self-report any Phragmites or wild parsnip that may be on their property. As our limited term employees are out and about, we do a window inventory, so whatever they can see from the truck is what we put in our inventory. And we'll add that to the list for the town board. Last year was a very successful treatment for the town of Sevastopol. There was one individual landowner that we know we were having some challenges getting a hold of, and this year we have decided to assist that person directly. So my limited term employees and I will be reaching out to that individual, and we'll be helping with their large population that they have. So what brings me here today is the Door County Invasive Species Team, which consists of all of the natural resource professional groups that are present throughout the county, which is the Fish and Wildlife, Nature Conservancy, Land Trust, Ridges Sanctuary, Soil and Water, and the DNR. We received donations this year that were not going to be a match for our grant dollars, and we had decided to hold true to the intent of the donation dollars. and we created a cost share program for municipalities that have adopted a noxious weed ordinance to include Phragmites and or wild parsnip and or common cutleaf teasel and knotweed. The main species of concern is still going to be Phragmites. So if they had at least that on their noxious weed ordinance, they qualify for the municipal cost share. What I brought with me today was the application, and that's just to give myself and the Door County Invasive Species Team Coordinator an idea of the amount of help that a municipality will need to carry out this treatment program. So we still are offering our services in terms of inventorying, landowner outreach, and assisting in contract RFPs, whatever assistance the town needs, we will be there to help. We are unable to fund it entirely through the process, so this cost share program is only going to be 50% up to $1,000, depending on the cost of your treatments. So this year, after our LTE start, we'll have a really good idea of the success rate of the treatments. At the end of the season, I'll be able to provide you with a decrease or an amount of acreage that has gone down for Phragmites. We also received a small donation from a small dollar amount from the DNR to treat the highway as well, $42.57. So that will get a second round of Phragmites treatments.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the board? Yes?
Krista, could you explain on page 2 of your handout? Okay. Priority will be provided to first-time applicants with no more than 5 applicants selected in a calendar year. Is that per municipality?
Yes. So the whole reason for that is the first year we were unsure if we'd be able to cover all 13 municipalities should luck strike and everybody adopt a noxious weed ordinance. So far we have received 3 applications for cost share from other townships.
Oh, other towns, okay. Thank you.
I would think we're in pretty good shape from the effort that we had the last couple of years. I know the beach people have really stepped up, and I know we had a few issues in some residential areas that the property committee worked with those people and they've resolved theirs. So I wouldn't expect that our town would have a large demand. I mean, we obviously find somebody, but.
Yep, so based on the inventory that I have, there's a little less than 2.5 acres of Phragmites, and the inventory of wild parsnip is less than an acre. What we're doing this year with our limited term employees is going beyond the right-of-way that the contractor is going to be treating, and we will be working with individual landowners to assist them with best management practices and what steps will work best on their property. So a more personalized approach than what we've done in the past. We won't be doing the work for them, but we will definitely be providing them the education information so that they can continue the work going forward.
Great, thank you. Anyone else have any comments? If not, thank you for coming out here this evening.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Moving on, Katie, we had asked prior to the meeting, John had asked if we could move up the new business items for the 2 people who are here for their hearings on their variances. Do you have a time constraint if I back you up 20 minutes or so? Yeah, go ahead. Is that all right? Thank you, I appreciate that. All these people owe you cocktails later because you're very generous, trust me. With that, we will take Mark and Jane McCabe, and we'll deal with that issue first. And John, I'll put that over in your trusting hands.
Okay. Mark and Jane McCabe presented for a grant of a variance of a minimum shoreline setback. Mr. McCabe explained his request to grant a variance in order to construct a year-round residence in the town of Sevastopol. He presented, I've lost my train of thought here, sorry about that. The Plan Commission had approved and supported in September 2017, had supported and recommended the town board. The town board had recommended to the RPC, and then the RPC had denied that one based on buildable footprint. So Mr. McCabe had submitted a more compressed version, which included an addition to the second floor of the existing small cottage and a small boardwalk and a corridor to the second-story attached garage storage. The proposed driveway has also reduced, making a lower impermeable surface and brought it down to from 20% to 13.3% on a 0.6 acre lot. And there is, if you got this colored drawing, there was a shed up on the top triangle with a concrete slab underneath it. And so part of the reduced permeable surface is the existing concrete slab and storage building will be removed. There was an addition on the water side that is just going to be a walkway now. And there were two letters in support from the direct neighbors, one to the south and one to the east. So as that, it was a 6-to-1 vote in favor to recommend to the town board for approval. So I'm thinking the biggest part of it was the impermeable surface that was too big for the last RPC meeting. So they have reduced a lot of that. The existing cottage is still, the farthest thing out towards the water. Everything is behind it. Did I miss anything by chance? Or are there any questions?
I think we covered it.
Okay.
McCabe's like to speak at all?
If you have questions, we'd answer those, but, the presentation I got took a while the other night, so I don't know if you want me to go through that whole thing at this point, or if your understanding of what happened here. Essentially, as John was saying, Mr. McCabe came here last year, went to the Board of Adjustment. After the town's recommendation to approve at both levels, the Board of Adjustment voted against the granting of the variance, and there was some confusion over one of the Board of Adjustment members' vote, the way things went, and there was another question about another Board of Adjustment member through some of the things that he said. So what I recommended when Mr. McCabe came to see me was that we do this process over again, and like John said, we kind of compressed the plan, took out some of the items that added to the impervious surface, and so now we're back here. The Board of Adjustment will be hearing this thing on the 12th of June, and we have our plan is essentially the same, but it reduces the impervious surface and makes perfect sense in my opinion.
Okay. I am aware of what you did earlier, and I understand what John's done with this committee. Does any of the board members have any questions with respect to this? Nothing from the McCabe's?
Okay.
That would leave us with...
I would make a motion to the RPC for approval, Board of Adjustments for approval of Mark and Jane McCabe's petition for shoreline setback variance.
And I would second that motion and ask that the reasoning and the 3 points be included in the recommendation form. The reason for the Plan Commission's decision that the addition would not be any closer to the shore than the existing cottage. Owner's desire to make this a permanent year-round residence. Proposed project is in keeping with the neighborhood. Proposal is a smaller footprint with less impervious surface than the initial request. Existing concrete pad and storage building will be removed from the setback area, again reducing impervious surface. And neighbors have submitted letters of support.
And you think Amy has all of that right now?
I know she has all of it, because she has a copy of the minutes.
Did you want to read that all back? We'll pass on that. All right, we have a motion by John and a second by Linda to have the town support their request to the Board of Adjustment. And assuming there is no further discussion, we would have a vote on that. So all those in favor of this would signify by saying yes. It would be great.
Aye.
Aye. Motion?
Aye.
Yes.
Yes. Anybody opposed? No. All right, in that case, good luck, second time around.
Thank you so much for your help, everyone.
We were thinking of rejecting it just for something different, and then the Board of Adjustment would have approved it, right?
Yeah.
Good luck, hopefully it goes for you.
Thank you very much. I welcome any support there.
One more. Quick and painless. Jane, is it Zelinsky? Zuski. Sorry, Jane. Mark, we will give this an opportunity to be heard, and we'll give it back to John for a minute.
Okay, this one is a petition for a zoning map amendment for rezoning. Mrs. Suzuki requested a rezoning of her parcel from estates to single-family residence, 20,000 feet, for the purpose of selling a portion to the southeast corner to James and Nancy Anderson. They're adjacent neighbors to the south. And the piece in question is about 145 feet by 144 feet, and then 150 on the other side, and 190 feet on South Country View Road. The subject parcel is just less than an acre, 0.98 acres. And all the houses directly around them were put in when we rezoned. They were non-conforming lots in estates, which is supposed to be 5 acres, and roughly most of them are 1 acre, 2 acres, so they're not conforming anyhow, so. And I don't know if we had any letters of support. Did you get any letters of support in the, no? Okay. And the Plan Commission was that the property owners were all in agreement, request the parcel will be continue to be residential use, and there's no hardship to the neighbors. They would not be affected by sanitation, well, septic. And the only reason is Mrs. Suzuki has a odd-shaped lot, and they were just changing the property in the back, that small piece, so that it would square up the lots. And then she would have a triangle, they would have a rectangle instead of a trapezoid, so.
All right. Any comments from anyone on the board? If not, we will give Jean an opportunity to speak if she desires. Anyone?
When I looked at the zoning classifications, types of use, in every instance, except for one modest instance, it's more restrictive. So it seems to me that this makes a great deal of sense.
Correct. Did you have a map on the, because the part that she's selling would still be zoned SF20, and her triangle would be SF20, and the Andersons would still stay in estates. So.
We had the opportunity at the property committee meeting to have Jeff there.
Okay.
So he took some of us through a little bit of the logic associated with that, and the fact that it does not become any less restrictive than it already is. So from my perspective, or I should say from Jeff's, it certainly didn't seem like there was any showstoppers. Do you have anything you'd like to say? Okay.
And the only thing with the comprehensive plan is it's consistent. This is a residential area, right. Anyhow, there. So, and the comprehensive plan committee did not have any objections.
All right. Any other comments from the board? If not, a motion would be in order, John?
I make a motion to forward this to the, are we going to the RPC this time? The RPC for approval.
I second it.
Motion by John, second by Tony, to have the town support a recommendation for this change to the Resource Planning Commission or Committee. There's no further discussion? There is.
Could we
Yes.
ask, and I would just like to ask that Amy incorporate the reasons as stated there by the Plan Commission for her decision when she sends the recommendation form, so that it's clear. I won't read it all.
I suspect that she has already documented all of that. All right, so with that motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Good luck and thank you.
Thank you.
And I have a storage building for sale too, in case you're wondering. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, we're going to switch gears and go back to the pending business, and the first person on our agenda would be Katie Roth, and she's here to talk about our town hall mural project. Thank you for being so kind to let them slip ahead of you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Yes, so this time, I think you guys all have a couple of printouts.
Yep.
Yes.
One is an estimate, and then the others are better examples, so you don't have to use so much of your imagination to see what that would look like on the wall. And Linda and I spoke a little bit, one of those that I don't have up here, but it's this image is in the center, and then we have some photographs, either older photographs or newer photographs on the
Right.
sides, yeah. So that would be in addition to the main mural, to kind of point out those locations. Also took out any sort of businesses. This is all just basically geographic locations of certain parks and lakes and everything like that, towns and things like that. So, and then also I invite any sort of, if we do go on with this, invite any sort of changes you would want to see on it, like, color-wise or things like that. Script, the different fonts, stuff like that.
Right.
So, just so you know.
When I had looked at this and the larger picture, which we don't have that one. All right.
No, sorry.
That's all right. For the limited audience here, we can at least try.
Do you want me to?
There you go. You want to pass
Basically-
that around, Katie?
Pass it around.
Basically, the idea would be to put the mural on the wall on either canvas or wood or something, and then surround it with photographs from the archives that we have here from the Historical Society and others, and which I like that idea from the beginning. My thoughts were, or I guess one of my questions would be is, do you think there's some way that we could delineate where some of those pictures came from without impacting your artwork? In other words, if you have a picture of a boat launch, to put it like, however, I don't know if that's feasible or even a good idea.
No, that makes sense. I think that's a good idea. And we also kind of discussed whether or not those images would change, the photographs.
Right.
So I'm sure there is like a kind of temporary indication, maybe there's a number next to each of these things,
Right.
and you can place it on the map for those sorts of things.
I thought we needed titles on the, I don't know what that is. We needed titles on the pictures so that it has some reference, and then if we could figure out a way to indicate where that activity took, if it was something, more than a generic logging operation.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I thought that, and then with the idea of changing them out over time, struck my fancy.
Yeah, I think there's room to kind of move yeah, change things around, but more descriptive as far as the photographs go.
Right.
You know, when they took place, what they were doing. Yeah, I think that's a doable thing.
Okay.
Were you thinking of, like incorporating, like, I'm looking here at Institute, you know, how these little birds got their names, that, how many people are aware there was actually an institution
Certainly.
over there, you know, for, orphans, that's how it started.
Oh,
And
okay.
that's how Institute got its name.
Okay,
So, I mean, if there, maybe there's something in the archives.
sure.
That could probably go in the, you know, in the pictures alongside.
Yeah, it could either go in the pictures, or there's plenty of space to add any other text, I think, to this. Yeah, I think that's something we could do graphically.
Big, was there a dimension on there?
I said,
6 by 4.
Yeah, 6 by 4.
It's on the bid sheet.
Which I'm thinking is maybe, I don't know how big this screen is, but pretty close, I would think. 6 by
Oh,
4.
yeah, here it is, I'm sorry, I thought I saw it somewhere.
On this page, Dan.
Yep, I got it.
Well, you're thinking of, painting that on, you have canvas, you're not gonna put it right on the wall, actually.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, we kind of discussed that last time, wanting
Right.
it to be something removable.
Yep.
Yes. So I would imagine most likely canvas is what I would use. Build
Mr. Chair,
a canvas.
could I make a comment about the map?
Sure.
I think, can't quite see from here, but I think the creek that goes into Dunes Lake, what is the name you have on the map for that?
It says Donlands.
That's incorrect.
Okay.
Isle Creek.
Okay. I'll have to know.
Donlan is someplace else, I forget, but that's definitely Isle Creek. It's a sign on the road.
Oh, sorry.
Signs on several roads, and the guys were petitioned for that some years ago. So
Okay.
I definitely want that on there.
Yeah. I mean, if there are incorrections on here, we'll make those corrections before I paint them on a canvas. For example, that one. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's all right. I mean, there's like, a couple of us talked about the fact that the old stone quarry has actually been renamed, so I don't know if
Right.
we want to.
Made that change on there.
Oh,
It's-
okay.
Is it, I'm not,
Penny.
Penny
Penny.
/ Old Stone? I don't know which one you would prefer or want. If you want the new one, we can put that on there, that's fine.
Color-wise,
Yeah.
is that from I don't know where you got this to start with. Was it from a photo from the county website or?
I started with a map
Right.
that Amy handed me, and then other than that, I used a little bit of like the aerial view of colors
Okay.
from Google Earth.
Okay.
But other than that, just kind of did an illustration of it. It's not an exact. So if you have recommendations or you would want something different,
Believe
let
me,
me know.
I'm no artist. I just was curious if, there was, how much, whatever. No, I have no problem. I just wondered how we, or how you depicted the colors.
Yes,
So,
that's pretty much how I did it. There's some small, like up in the corner, there's more blocks of where you could tell people, individual properties and things like that. And then
Right.
over here, it's more wooded area. It is.
Is there a West Town Line Road? That was another one. Was it defined on our street sign? Because I know she has it on the map, but isn't it actually?
Yeah, East Town Line is very short. East Town Line is to the east of
Right.
Highway 57, that little bitty strip,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
The rest is west
Okay,
town.
all right. I couldn't remember whether there was a designation of that on there.
Do you think we need to have west on there? Could we just have Town Line Road?
Well,
I would just put Town Line Road.
yeah.
Perfect.
That's what I would have.
Are there other things on this map from anybody's observations that we should at least try to capture from a naming perspective?
I do like the idea of, yes, they did have a name change to Penny, but I do like the reference to keep the old stone quarry because that's what it originally was. So I like it just the way it is on there. I like it a lot. I like the whole design, the kind of fading out, to the north, and I assume you're gonna fade out to the south then, and
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
You will, I'm not trying to be nitpicky, but like Clark Lake and some of these small lakes, they'll be a little bit more pronounced when you know, than on these. I realize this is just, pictures. You know,
Sure.
like,
You mean the text?
yeah, you'll be able
Yeah.
to see them, you know.
Yes, yes, yes,
Better.
yes.
Cool.
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, I personally like it. It sounds to me like Linda does. I don't know how the rest of the board feels. Good,
Yeah.
bad, or indifferent.
I think it's great. I mean, I'm just curious on, you put the stars for Institute, is that our capital?
It's town hall.
No,
And then Valmy and Whitefish Bay are dots, but
Sure.
that's no problem.
I can make Institute
No, I don't
a
care.
dot as well. I think I put it there because
The town hall is
it
here?
is here,
That makes
Right.
sense.
and that's where people, that usually is an indication you are here.
Okay.
But
Yeah, I
I can
think
make
that
it a
makes
dot.
sense.
I was just curious
I like
on why
that
you
idea,
chose
too.
that.
I like that idea too. No, I think it looks nice and clean. I would not want to see it all cluttered up with all of the roads and everything. I
Right.
think the pictures along the side, and which we could change out from time to time, or as residents submit photos.
Yeah, I think that's really the key piece is, try and show some of the heritage and then at the same time indicate where some of this activity took place, if it's feasible, so it doesn't mess things up. And give people an opportunity, so the next time they come in, they stop and take a look, the pictures are different. We can change them out, whatever.
Yeah.
Tony, any thoughts?
No, the only one, like I said, was I had, on the sides of it, we do history of the different little bergs, we can always be changing them. And I'd like I say, I'd like to see the lakes a little bit, if you do more pronounced where they are.
Sure.
Otherwise, it looks good to me. I mean, you almost gotta go with just a couple colors, you don't want it to be,
Yeah.
Too chaotic.
but it'll be roughly that size, I mean, because 4 by 8,
Yeah.
okay.
Jim, any?
I think it makes a lot of, it makes a lot of sense. I'd like to proceed.
Okay. Amy, you're gonna have the last word, at least from our perspective here. You're gonna have to go by it every day and dust it.
Probably change the pictures too.
You're probably gonna change the pictures.
I think it looks very nice. We had some initial changes that we had made, regarding some names. But otherwise, I mean, it's very crisp and, I think it looks very nice.
Okay.
Well, I would say that since everybody seems to be in favor of it, why don't we go ahead and ask her to give us a final proof before you start,
Yes.
however you're gonna do
Yes.
that.
Yes.
And I like what you did, and I thank you for your efforts. So she's anticipating the cost would be around $1,000, correct?
Yes.
Well, I can make a motion too,
Really?
I think I will. I'll make a motion that we move ahead with this project.
I think we should. Second.
I don't know, motion by Dan, second by Jim. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Do we have the money
We have the money.
this year?
We do.
Okay.
We're gonna get it out of the school because they're gonna repair our fence and we're gonna cash in that check.
You can take it out of the park fund.
Take it out of the park.
Take
fund.
it out of the
Take it out
park
of the
funds,
park
okay.
system.
All right.
You always want to take it out.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you for your time. We look forward to your final proof and whatever other suggestions you might have.
Okay, thank you.
And next week, Thursday, you'll have it up?
Sure.
Okay, great.
No, not a
All right. Thank you. All right, I need an agenda. Here we go. Okay, Chuck is not here.
Thank you.
Chuck is not here tonight, but I think we're all pretty much in a common understanding of what's transpired at the Old Town landfill. The the DNR is requesting that we make some changes at the landfill to deal with a couple of issues that are up there. And Chuck was gracious enough to continue to carry this project out since he started it until it was completed. And the timeline for us to do that is, I believe, the end of June, and we'll probably be okay with that, assuming the weather doesn't impact our ability to access the property. Basically, what's going to transpire here is that we're going to create a trench on the east piece of the property, which, if you look at the property, it slopes uphill. So on the eastern edge of that property, we'll create a trench to capture water that comes off of the farm or the farmland that is above it and further to the east, which we feel is coming down into the landfill and saturating it and causing some runoff on the far western edge. So the idea is that we will trench up there and head to the north and bring a trench with rainwater runoff, if you want to call it that, down alongside the current parking lot, which never was part of the landfill in terms of buried treasures. It was strictly an access area. So the idea there is to capture and divert water coming off the hill so it doesn't go into the landfill. Originally, the landfill was capped with 2 feet of clay, and over the years, trees grew up through the clay barrier, and unknown to us, the DNR said that you do not want that type of activity to occur, that land is strictly to be grassland, as the tree roots and others would fracture the clay cap and allow water to enter into the landfill area itself. So we have some work to do there, and we're going to spread material on top of the clay cap to foster the growth of grass and some real nice weeds, hopefully no Phragmites. And then on the area to the far west, which backs up to the cedar trees down there, we're going to open up that particular end of the landfill and recap it with clay and then topsoil or some other covering material and seal that end. So it's our anticipated hope, I say hope, that this will resolve the concerns that were expressed by the DNR. The cost estimates that Chuck has got for us are approximately $400. It involves the 3 components: one, to ditch around the edge, secondly, to open up the cap on the other end, and then to cover the entire area with material so that it will promote grass growth on top of that landfill. And of course, that wasn't budgeted and nor expected. It just came up out of the blue in the early spring. So we have to approve spending these funds. We really do not have, and this is not an optional program that we're doing because we're nice guys or whatever. I mean, we have to make this, and we have to accomplish it by the end of June. So because it exceeds $5,000 and because it's not in our budget, we're going to move funds from our general fund to take care of this. And so it's by a vote of the board, needing a 2/3 majority or 3 of you to agree. And that's kind of it. So questions from anyone? Yes.
Yeah, what, this was all started so that you could have a parking lot at Dunes Lake.
Right.
And are they kicking in any money?
No.
How about the county? This was for grants,
Well,
we're the ones flipping the bill, and we're up to over $23,000 now with the $8,000 we did for the tree trimming.
right. I mean, the tree trimming
So-
piece, we'd have had it done anyhow, that just no one knew it. But you're right. I mean, half of it is as a result of them. I haven't had anybody step forward and say, hey, here's some cash. And if we can figure out some way to do that, that'd be great. But in the meantime, we need to move ahead with this.
I agree with
from
that.
a timing perspective, so we meet their requirements. And I think there's a copy of that at your desk as well.
Yes.
So I'm going to certainly pursue it again when Mr. Colthurst gets back from his vacation, or Aaron Hansen, see what's up. So, anyone else?
Oh, sure.
Yes? Okay, Linda.
Well, like Mr. Stavenis said, it all started with Dunes Lake and the project to improve the water quality there. And the proponents, Dunes Lake is surrounded by privately owned property. And in order to get those grants from by Soil and Water, they needed a parking lot, more or less. and that's how we got involved. I think they definitely, let's see, the Nature Conservancy was involved, Door Land Preserve, Door County Soil and Water. I think they should be made aware of what we have expended so far. We spent over 20,000 last year, and now another 15. Again, it's not budgeted. I would also have liked to seen the estimate on letterhead from whoever the vendor might have been or might be. So we don't have a choice. The DNR says we have to do it, so we have to spend $15,000. I don't like it, but I don't think we have a choice. But I think, you know, those departments and those organizations should be made aware.
We could certainly send them a formal document telling them how much we appreciate their financial support.
Well, just to outline, you know, it started as another project that won't cost us a cent, or I think the limit was gonna be $1,000 or $3,000 at the get-go, and now it's, you know, exaggerated to over $30,000.
Okay, anyone else comment on the board?
I think that, as I read the materials from the DNR, I believe that Chuck has negotiated probably the most reasonable resolution.
Timeline.
Because I think had we, the DNR might very well have asked us to do things that were far more expensive, including digging monitoring wells and collection stations. And I think that this, you know, while I don't want to spend the money, I don't think we really have any alternative.
I think the fact that we approached the first part of it with the trees and all of that, and the way that was handled, actually cut us a little slack with the DNR, which is not something that I think always happens. So I'm grateful to Chuck in the way that was handled. So
I agree.
I agree.
I would also like to just mention that Supervisor Tice did put a lot of hours into this, and he did his due diligence, and like Mr. Nellen said, I think he's come up with the best cost estimate possible. So, thank him.
Tony, any comment?
Well, I didn't like the idea from the start when they came to us with the parking lot, but it's something that we did, and we were assured by Greg that it wasn't gonna be no cost to the town, but once the DNR, you know, heard about us in there, they remembered there was a landfill. Once DNR get involved, yeah, your hands are tied, we gotta do it.
Okay, you have a comment?
Seeing that Mr. Meisner and Ducks Unlimited donated $500 to you, and Mr. Meisner and Door Land Preserve LTD own the property all the way around that lake, why don't you call them and split it 50-50 instead of taking it out of our pockets? Because we sure didn't benefit from dredging that lake. It just cost us another $15,000 out of taxpayers' pockets. And I'm sure if you inquired at Ducks Unlimited, because they donated to you for this big push for this parking lot, I'm sure they might be able to scrounge up some money to kick towards it. Seeing that Mr. Meisner and Joel Kitchens did their big escapade in the Ducks Unlimited paper, and how the duck hunting is so great back there. And like I said, to whose benefit is it? Door Land Preserve LTD owns the property all the way around that lake. You cannot access that lake unless you do it on that creek.
The DNR felt that there was a reason to salvage that lake, and had they not done so, they believe that that lake would have self-destructed because there's very little lake left. It's mostly all sludge and
Well, they have a dump right next to the lake. You guys open up Pandora's box by voting yes.
So, anyway, that's fine, and we already have had some of that discussion. So we'll find out what's up and see if there's any further opportunities for them to step forward. So.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
On the bright side, there are people using the parking lot. In fact, last week we had people out there having lunch in the parking lot. Today there was a gentleman out there with his dog, and even though you're not supposed to go over the barriers, he was just throwing his dog toy out. But my question comes to, when are they going to finish cleaning up all the barbed wire and make it look more presentable, seeing as how you do have people starting to use it?
I'd have to ask where Chuck stood with that. I know he had acquired the necessary poles and other things to take care of that, but I couldn't tell you at this moment where that stands.
Because you are starting to get a lot of people utilizing the parking
Probably
lot.
be a
just,
food truck out there then next week.
Pardon?
So probably be a food truck out there next week.
I was thinking about it, but I gotta get the permit.
Oh. Would you mind terribly if you applied in Fish Creek for that permit?
No, I'm not gonna pass.
That's a good point. I'll find out. I think one of the plans, now that I think a little bit more about it, was that we were hoping that we would have some summer employees, somebody that might be near you that could possibly assist Chuck in that effort. Oh, Gary, hi, I didn't see you. That was the other piece of the puzzle. But I'll find out from Chuck where we stand on finishing that area up. And
Yeah, it would just be nice to clean it up, because if you're getting people, it'd be nice for us not to have to look at all of where, hint, hint.
okay. I don't believe that we have a motion on this yet. Do we?
Does it have to be a roll call?
It does. It has to be a roll call vote on the 2/3 majority. And then Amy has to remember to, because of this, we also have to do a publication notice. Okay. So,
We don't have a choice, do we?
No.
well, we do if you
We do, but
like
then
to
the
be drawn and
DNR,
quartered.
the DNR come back and
Right.
look deeper into it, and it might cost us a lot more later.
Right.
I suspect if we resist the DNR, they have no alternative but to begin enforcement proceedings against us.
Fine us.
Right.
They'll fine us, I'm sure.
But I think there was a good point brought from the floor too, that, contact those people and,
Yeah, we can shake the tree there again and see what possibilities might exist, so.
Or not even ask, just inform them that this is what we've spent out of the goodness of our.
I guarantee I will do exactly that. Thank you. Yes.
I'm putting the trench in around the dump and doing whatever you guys are doing. Will the heavy equipment damage that top any more than it already has? When you guys when they went in and processed the trees off of it?
I'm sorry, when they.
When they put the trenches in?
Right, well, they're gonna be up on the top edge of the landfill, and it'll
Okay,
be,
they'll be on the edge of the landfill. Will it damage the clay cap any more than it already has been?
no, because if I remember Chuck's comments too, the landfill is actually farther down, and we're talking about way up on the top. So I don't believe in the area that it's gonna be trenched out, so it comes back towards Geisel Creek, is all outside of the landfill area itself as well.
where it's actually capped, I think it's outside of
Yeah,
that.
it's all outside the cap
So
area.
they would not be going across the clay cap, no.
So on the top side would be actually to the east.
Right.
correct? East edge? Does
Yep.
anybody have any aerial photos of that? Because I remember that town dump, and it went pretty damn close to that fence line.
No, all we have is a nice picture of what's there now, so.
There's nothing prior to what we're dealing with now.
I don't know how you would have even captured something like that back then, and I was here at the same time,
1974.
so, but I'm talking about technology-wise, you'd have to have an aerial photo.
I got a 1933 picture sitting on my counter that captures all about me.
So. Okay, well, we'll take care of that. So, we have to do a motion and a roll call vote, so whoever would like to start that process.
Nobody wants to get shot.
Pardon me?
I said, nobody wants to get shot, but I'll take the bull by the horns. I move that we hire Lily Bay to do the trenching at the landfill due to, or per DNR orders.
Okay, we have a motion by Tony to approve the funds for the landfill project. We need a second.
Second.
Second by Jim.
Do we need to say an amount or not to exceed or based on an estimate or?
The estimate is
approximately?
$15,400, so I don't know if
We could modify the motion to indicate that we're prepared to proceed based on the materials presented to us and the numbers contained therein.
Well,
Sounds good.
sounds like a plan to me.
Okay.
All right. So, we have a motion and a second, and what we'll do is have Amy do a roll call vote.
Supervisor John Stabenus,
Aye.
Supervisor Linda Waite,
Aye.
Chairman Dan Wolfle,
Aye.
Supervisor Jim Nellen,
Aye.
Supervisor Tony Haynes.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. All right. we'll find out what we can on the other alternatives, not alternatives, funding, and the finishing of the area, so. Okay.
And hopefully that won't cost us any more money in the future.
Hopefully. You're right. Okay. All right, next item on the agenda is the town hall driveway lighting, and we picked this up, I think, a couple months back, where we've had issues with people coming in to vote, and their concern about not being able to get the driveway or access the driveway clearly. Back in February 21st, we received the first estimate from Harv's Electric, and that's what we had at our, I think it was our April meeting. Was it basically a $3,000 bill to install these LED lights on either side of the driveway with concrete sonotubes that would support them. I think the feelings of everybody at that time was that we didn't particularly like the look of the lights and kind of felt that they might be an opportunity for someone to drive right into them. So we went back to Harv's Electric and asked them to revisit this, and in this time, instead of using these LED light, low ground lights, what we've asked for is a light pole similar to all the other ones in the parking lot, and again, the same basic process, trench concrete sonotube to install it, and that estimate came back at $41.96, roughly $4,200. So, not knowing where you want to go with that, that's basically all the information we have to share with respect to that.
Do we have any electricians in the town that could give us a price on this? We always run the Harv's Electric from Kewanee. If we've got an electrician in the town, I think we ought to start trying to get some prices from local electricians.
The only reason, Tony, that we used Harv's is a lot of this stuff, since they did the actual building construction, it's so convoluted back there on, you know.
In other words, they screwed it up so bad.
Well, it's just that, you know, you got sensors over here for this, and, you know, by the time you pay somebody to find all the sensors and all the, you know, the triggers and everything else, and frankly, they don't have all that much in there in terms of labor when you look at the trenching and the concrete and the tube. So I don't have a problem with it. I just don't want to spend more money if we decide to do it by having someone come in here and try and learn, you know, what's going on. So, but okay, I'm fine with it either way. That's kind of my thoughts. Anyone else?
Well, it's another unbudgeted item, over $4,000. Can we, we've gone 9 years without the light pole. I really think we need a light pole. Like we said, at election nights, it's really dark out there, especially if it's snowing or raining. Can we delay this to our 2019 budget? Are they able to trench and install this in the winter, or is it only a springtime or?
Well, they're not going to do any trenching in the winter.
Okay.
So, I mean,
I
you could.
assume they're going to trench from that light pole over towards the rock pile.
Right.
On the school side of the driveway, correct?
I think so. I can't guarantee that. Do you recall,
I
Amy?
think that's what he was talking about when he was
That's
out
the
here
shortest.
looking at it, yes.
And probably the easiest.
I would think if they did it in the wintertime, they would charge a frost charge.
Yeah.
Which would probably double the amount of, at least double the cost for putting in the wire.
So if we postpone it to 2019, it's not going to happen till the spring?
We could go at it two ways. I mean, you could decide to go ahead and have the tube and the trenching and everything else done, but not actually order the light till later, which would be, we could have someone stand out there with a fixture.
It's a matching light post to what we have, right?
Correct, right. Yeah. Sure.
Have you investigated a solar light? Is that?
The cost of, the lights have been switched out here all to LED. We used to have sodium vapor or quartz or whatever, and so now they're all LED, and they cost literally nothing. But I don't know if we could find a solar panel that would be bright enough in lights. We could look at it, though.
Mm-hmm. Did we ever ask utilities if they would consider putting a light pole there? I mean, they put one at Rock Ridge Road when those neighbors asked for it.
No, never
Would
gave
it
any
hurt
thought to
to
that.
ask?
No, we could ask
You
him,
might
I
not
don't
have to
know.
ask because you could say you have foot traffic sometimes because of
Between the
events that are
school and-
occurring here, not just with school, but people, you know, people, why drive here when you live across from Sevastopol School, so just walk on over. So that might be an angle, at least to approach it that way.
WPS, I'll be happy to make the call. I
I'd
mean,
be
it
happy
wouldn't
to.
hurt, would it?
No, not at all. I suspect they'd be a little reluctant because there's no need, but fine, let's
Well,
chase it
if I
down.
If I have the okay to use some school traffic as well.
Yeah, I mean, but there's so many, or even just different, like I said, there's things that occur out on the street too,
To the
so.
park and back.
Yeah. Let's see if you can, go ahead. I have no issue with that if it works. I don't know that we can get a similar light fixture if
Oh,
we.
it won't be, it'll look like a light fixture
Oh,
like
no,
that's
pole.
at Rock Ridge or
Right.
by the school or what. It won't be fancy, no,
No, no,
but
I-
it'll be on the highway, of course, too.
Right.
Hopefully armed this way. I don't know.
Well,
I don't know.
I'm sure WPS will put one up because we had one put at the boat launch at Town Line. We requested that.
Wasn't that just a light on a pole that was there, though?
That was a new light on a pole. The pole was there, correct?
But I mean, we don't have a pole out here in any proximity. That's what you're really talking about, is you have to get a pole in the ground and, I mean, the light part is no big deal. If we could
Right.
sneak, maybe we could sneak a pole in one night.
I don't have a big truck anymore.
Andy Tank works for WPS, right?
Yes.
He was just in my neighborhood. I'll see if I can wrangle him.
Okay.
At least take a look at the area.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, so Linda's volunteered to do that, and we should be okay for a few weeks because we have summer working in our favor with long daylight hours. Okay. We will go back and talk to Harv's too and just see if there is any alternative with a solar power which would take out a little bit of labor if in fact it'll give us enough brightness. Now, the school district, if I'm correct, the school district's putting in LED solar-powered lights for speed control on both sides of us. I talked to Rock about that.
That's a blank look.
They're pulling out the electrically run timers.
I have no idea.
Yeah, they are. I
Oh,
talked to
that's
Rock.
right, yes.
Although he was concerned, it wouldn't be so big an issue for a light pole, but he was concerned about having adequate solar power to power the things. So, and I thought that's something that they have to have happen.
Instead of those amber flashing
The
lights?
amber flashing light will be there, it'll be solar operated in LED instead of electrically powered on a timer. And so then, yeah, so they'll be able to, instead of having it run Saturdays and Sundays, going 15 miles an hour, they'll be able to fine tune that. So, all right, we'll go back and talk to Harv's, bring it back next month. Linda will follow up with WPS and anybody that she knows. Okay. Anything else on that? Otherwise, we're moving on. Okay. Rural insurance. This has been back, I think, a couple times, and we talked about data breach coverage and what happens if someone would manage to get inside our systems and acquire information that would cause significant harm or problems with anybody in the way of identity theft and items along those lines. We were recommended by the Wisconsin Towns Association and Rural that we have some coverage in there. Turns out that our current policy covers a $10,000 limit for identity theft at the cost of $39. I went back to the district manager for rural and asked him what he could find out from his company in terms of what the typical town, if there is such a thing, had in the way of coverage, and he found that the majority of them had $100,000 worth of coverage if they had any at all. And so that was kind of his recommendation, which would increase our premium $113 a year. They, at the current time, do not offer more than $100,000. I don't know that we would need that much more, but they are, to give you an idea of what they're concerned about, is they are involved in doing an internal study to see if they can bump that liability coverage up to $1 million. So they obviously have some concerns based on some issues. So my recommendation is that we increase our limits to the $100,000 category, which increases our premium by $113, because I don't think $10,000 gets us, we might as well have nothing.
113 or 152?
It goes from 39, which is in our current premium, goes to 152. So it goes up.
119.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it goes up an incremental $113. So just more of an FYI than anything else, unless someone has an issue with it.
So we're doing this?
I'm gonna do this, yeah. All right. Next item is the supervisor email project, and this has been kind of an ongoing project on and off, going back a couple of years or more. And the idea here is to get your email off, or I should say your email, town-related email off your personal computers, and also to get the emails related to town activity into a storage system, so that if we have to address any particular occurrences, open records request, or if something changes with a supervisor and you want continuity, they'll be able to go back in and pick up where the previous person left off, or address any concerns that may come up from the board, committee, or constituents. Originally, when I started this project a few years back, I went to the county to Tim Ullman, who was the county IT manager at the time. He has since left and been replaced by Jason Brower. We had hoped to maybe link up with the county to provide IT services for the town, and also to work on this project. It turned out that in order to do that, we would have to become part of the dark fiber project that the school did. In other words, buy in. And the cost associated with us attaching to the school's fiber, just the upfront cost, was around $70,000. I didn't think that that was going to fly. So we have been chasing down other alternatives. I went back to Jason Brower, and Jason Brower recommended a fellow that works for the city of Sturgeon Bay as their IT manager, who also has his own business called Door County IT. His name is Chad Milkey. He came recommended by Jason. I talked to Chad. I have estimates, as you've seen here in the package. And what Chad would do is establish unique email address accounts for each board member on your existing hardware, whatever that might be, which is a little bit messy initially, because the overall plan would be into 2019, we would purchase some type of device where you would have a separate device, iPad, laptop, something where you would have all of the packet information sent to you electronically. We wouldn't be printing all the stuff. Your emails and everything else would reside on that. But we need to take action on this thing now versus later, so it's going to be a little bit of a two-step if we decide to do it. As part of his recommendation, he would install Office 365, which is a cloud-based software. You can buy Office on a disk and run it on your PC with no connectivity back to the internet. Office 365 is just the opposite. It's cloud-based using Microsoft servers, so everything resides in the cloud or is backed up in the cloud. As part of that software, the key ingredient would be Outlook 2016, which is Microsoft email server. Included in that package, simply because it's a package, is Microsoft Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. So he would install all of that software on your device. Your mail will automatically backed up to the cloud, so it's accessible for an open records request, or if there was a change in a board member, as I indicated before, so continuity is maintained. He is also recommending that we all have the same common antivirus software, so he would install antivirus software. The town would buy a 10-seat license. What is included in here is an estimate. Obviously, when you're working with everybody's different pieces of hardware and everybody's knowledge level, I think it's it can be a little bit of a challenge. Ideally, we would try and get this thing implemented now, and then in our budget, we would build in hardware for 2019. His estimates, which are in the packet here, would be roughly right $1,540 for his services. Part of that is the installation of the antivirus software. We would also, at the town level, pay $12.50 per month for each of you as a user to use the cloud-based software. The nice thing about cloud-based software is you don't have to do all the updates and everything. It is managed by Microsoft. They just automatically install the fixes. You don't have to get involved in it, so it's a little cleaner. He'll set up your accounts. He'll transfer all the stuff over. You'll have an email account, Dan Wolfel or John Stavinus at townofsevastopol.com. He'll work through that. He'll set up the retention policies. He'll do remote help and set up as much as he can. If he needs to, he'll physically do it depending on what's up. And I said I think he'll do the antivirus installation as well. Then next year, assuming we can budget something, he would help us migrate to that. I did talk to Jason again about what they used at the county, as Linda uses. They use a Microsoft Surface laptop. I think 2 years ago they used Apple's, I think, didn't they, Linda? Or no, they used Android. They used,
I don't know, 2 years ago.
I can't recall. But at any rate, he is anticipating on his end that he's going to be switching hardware next year if he can get it accomplished at the county board level. He said it might be a possibility that we could acquire some of their Surface units if in fact that happens. I don't know whether that will or will not happen. He spends about $700 for each device currently. We'd need 5 of those devices, depending on what's up. They may be less or more depending on where we go in 2019. Linda also did some, in fact I did as well earlier, talked to Dustin Overbeek at Overbeck at TownWeb Design. They could set up email accounts for us. You talked to Town of Egg Harbor, right? And they basically have taken a lot of this already. They're ahead of us in that regard. They use Dell laptops. They used a different vendor to do their work and spent, in addition to the equipment cost, which was $3,100, they spent another $1,325 for the installation and training. They don't say here whether they have email backup in any way, cloud-based or anything. And
For the laptops or for the emails?
For the emails.
That I don't know.
And if there is a little bit of a negative, and I remember when we were at the meeting, Linda, they are encouraging us to get away from Town Web. So I'd be kind of reluctant to go have them establish accounts when there's a good probability we'll migrate our webpage away from them to this new recommended Wisconsin Towns web design. And the reason for that is that it turns out that every municipality under the sun is using this particular platform today, and it turns out to be very hackable, which only increases problems for people and us. So, anyway, that's kind of it. So, if there's questions, we can have Chad come too if need be. Go ahead.
Rather than do it piecemeal, email here, iPads here, and then changing websites if that's going to be our intention. And JB Systems, I believe, is the one that Wisconsin Towns is going with. You know, could we get a really good deal if we did everything at one time, budget it properly for 2019? I don't know. If we go this route with the email, with Door County IT or IT for $1,500, do those emails will come right to our device? Amy does not need to route them to us, correct?
Correct. Well.
So like you said, we would have an additional email account set up on our device, whatever that might be.
And he can set it up so that you can just log in and log out of your own email if you have, like I have Outlook, I have all of this already.
Yes, I have.
So he can set it up either way. You could log out of it, or, you know, if you have a laptop you want, the county might be amenable to letting you just do it on the county device as well, because obviously you could be burdened by 3 devices. You could be carrying PCs everywhere.
I guess I'm just a little hesitant to have somebody messing with my own laptop, to put it bluntly.
If we,
That's pretty blunt.
no, I understand. If we
That's right.
do this initial first step, though, we would end up with the emails received having to do with town business would not reside on our computer, it would reside.
Well, they will actually reside on your computer, but they'll also be backed up automatically in the cloud.
Okay.
And if you really went to extremes, you could be anywhere in the world and you could access all of your mail without being home on your PC through that device. You know, it's 6 of one, half dozen the other. I mean, I hear what you're saying. I just went through a computer upgrade and it can be messy.
And I agree, we need to have separate emails for town business.
Right.
Absolutely. But,
I think we just have to do that. I share your concern, Linda, that we don't want to do this in 2 or 3 steps because, it's going to be, the transitions are always difficult. But I think that having town emails available in the cloud so that they can be retrieved by Amy when necessary makes all the sense in the world. It may be more complicated and we may end up paying an extra $1,000, but I think that the benefit that accrues to the town, if one of our computers crashes and dies or something else happens, I think it's, or if there's a transition between supervisors.
I mean, we can roll this another month, and I can ask Chad to come and talk to that with any of your specific questions. I have no problem with that.
What about all the committee members? Are they still gonna get stuff mailed out? I mean, you're mailing all this stuff out to committee members through their personal email too.
Well, there's not really a fix for that. I mean, not unless we become...
Could be open Pandora's box again.
Yeah, but that stuff that's getting mailed out is all documents that come from us.
Yeah.
So there's nothing there that's going out that would be different than what you distribute at a meeting or what gets distributed to you. And, the communications back anyhow are limited, so, you shouldn't have an additional issue there. At least I don't think so. So
all the emails that we're getting now from constituents or whatever, so they send me an email. If this was in place, would I respond to them saying, please email me this message to Linda Waite at townofsevastopol.com?
Right, you could do that. You would respond to them through your email account at Linda Waite at Town of Sevastopol, and you would respond back by replying to their email, which then would become part of the document that would go back into the Town of Sevastopol email address. So, I don't know, I mean, it's...
If we bit the bullet and did this all at one time,
We can't-
iPads, laptops or whatever,
Right.
and emails and the training session, I'm thinking it would be less than $5,000 or $6,000.
It would be less? Well, you've got...
Depending on what kind of device we get.
Well, if he spent $700 a piece for the devices that you're carrying around today, that's $3,500. He's talking 15.
Egg Harbor spent way less than that.
They spent
And it was
31.
3 years ago, but they did spend way less than that.
You said they spent $3,100 for equipment.
Yep.
So 7 times 5 is 35. That's not a lot less.
No, I guess not.
I mean, I don't have a fondness for anything one way or the other. It makes no difference to me.
Do we want to ask if JB Systems handles emails as well? If we decide to switch website hosts? Okay.
I don't know if they do or not. I have no idea.
Or we just do this fix right now?
You can have, I don't think, it should cost you more to have emails on there, you know, addresses, and then to get it. So, and the cloud is, I have Windows 360 and I have cloud, that's pretty simple. But Amy would probably have to know your individual password to pick up your emails. You know, pick up your messages, just so that you're aware of that. So I don't know.
I don't know that JD Design does. We can certainly call them and ask. And I suspect if they do web design, they probably don't integrate, you know, into that. But I can find out. It's not a problem.
Couldn't we just have a separate address?
Problem is not just having so much the address. The problem is having it archived.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
And saved
It
for
has to be archived
open
and saved.
records, requests,
Yeah, right.
et cetera.
And so you know, that's why our file cabinets back there are, you know. So that's the really underlying issue, not so much the incoming email perspective, so. I mean, I'd be happy, I'll go back and talk to JB and see what they say, and I can also have Chad come to the meeting, or any other resource that you like. I don't think we, I'm gonna think here, I don't know that we wanna try and bite the bullet on all of that this year. And I don't know on the flip side if we wanna wait till next year.
Our money.
I know, it's kinda 6 of one, half dozen the other.
And my question is, I'm not a computer guy. What's wrong with what we have now? I mean, why do we want to spend more money? Isn't it working what we have?
The problem is archiving emails. We don't have a system of archiving all of the requirements that you could have legally, or that you should have.
How long are you
legally.
supposed to keep them?
7 years.
7 years.
Okay.
By then, your garage will be full of paper. So,
But, so this means somebody physically comes into your house, puts more goggly goop on your computer.
you may not, it just depends on your device. It may happen.
I got an
but-
old computer,
Well,
so am I gonna be forced to buy a new computer?
No, we're not forcing any of that.
So I don't have to go on this if I don't want.
Take it out of the
Well,
parks
no,
budget.
if we did it, you would go on it, and assuming your hardware would support it. He doesn't seem to feel that, and God knows how old your hardware is, but, you know, no, it would be, the idea would be is he would take care of all that for you, and then next year, or whenever we do this, you'd have a device separate from your home. This is a bridge, and like Linda said, we don't have to implement it this year. I would encourage us to try and get it done, but if we do it next year, we could start with clean devices, and, you know, he could install it all, and, you know, go through, and, or he or whomever, and then you'd have a separate device too. And it is cleaner from that perspective, so.
I also think that if you get a request for information, and that causes us to want to look at emails, Amy, if it's all available, can do a search request and gather the 15 or 20 documents that might be responsive, as opposed to looking through several hundred emails each of us have, which becomes burdensome and becomes less reliable than going out and making that specific email request, making the particular inquiry and getting back the responsive documents.
Well, what are those little things you plug into your computer?
USBs.
Couldn't you put all of them on those? I mean, I don't know. I guess, I don't know why we gotta have it, but.
Well, let's do this. I've given you as much as I could off the top of my head here and from what I've gathered. I'll go back and check with JB Systems just to see what's up. I'll do a little more investigation here in the county, run some other ideas past some people and see what's up. You kind of kick this around. We'll bring it back next month. If during the course of the next few weeks you think that you'd like to hear more from Chad, I'll get him here on the agenda and he can come in and talk to it. And we'll delay it a month. I mean, we don't have to do it today anyhow, but I mean, we'll put it back on for next month. and try and reach some conclusion. Either we are going to try and take a step now, or we're going to delay it till next year. And, you know, do it as one integrated deal, so.
I think I'm in agreement with Supervisor Waite that we should do it all at one time.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, not that I have anything to hide, but my personal email, my wife's email's on that computer, you know, and whoever else on that computer. And Big Brother's watching all the time, so I don't know.
Well, the only thing that would be on there, he wouldn't access your personal emails. He would set up an account for you so that anything that had town-related stuff went in and out through that.
Right, but we're getting town-related stuff now on our personal email.
Correct, yeah.
So,
So you want to get it off of there.
yeah.
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 I mean, I think it's imperative that we do have separation, how we go about that. You know, if we spend $1,500 now and it's just a fix to, you know, get us through the end of the year, I'm not sure that's the wisest investment, but it is imperative and it should be done, It should have been done probably a while back.
Yeah. Okay, I'll do a little more background work on it. We'll bring it back next month. If you feel you want to hear from somebody, let me know, and we'll bring them in. Okay. I'm going to make the urban towns decision really easy. Let's just make that part of 2019.
I agree.
Did you want to have a motion to that effect? Never mind. I think that's one of those categories, though, where I think we need to participate, because that's the only lobbying resource that we have. And we talk about, for example, the investment that we have in the PEG channel. The only people that are going to be out there waving the flag for us are going to be lobbyists that are hired by Wisconsin Towns Association. And so I think we need to be an integral part of that. And next year's $650, it would be a good investment. So Amy, put that in the budget for a discussion for future, and we'll pick it up then.
The landfill will pick that up.
All right. Okay, the Bodwin Engineering and the Town Road Project, kind of one and the same. When we had the road tour this weekend, I gave you some information with respect to Bodwin, and I think, oh yeah, I handed out on Saturday morning a little backup information that came from Steve Parent at Bodwin when they did the projects for the other towns, which were Jacksonport, Egg Harbor, Liberty Grove. I mean, they hit about half of the towns. His cost was estimated, because we do have one road that we're going to do for sure through the LRIP project, which is Nelson Lane. His cost on that was $2,300 to do that, and I went back to him, and he responded today, and I said, okay, what's the cost to do, you know, 2, 3, 4 miles? Basically, maybe a couple $100 more, $200-300 more. So he said all the cost is up front in getting it started. So he said if, in fact, we're interested next year in using his services, or whenever, even this year, the incremental cost would be minimal to do that. So that was encouraging, because obviously you don't want to spend the kind of money they're talking about on the first go-round. And as I go into the road tour, let me explain a little bit too.
I'm going to ask a question.
Sure, go ahead.
So they're going to charge us the $2,300. They're going to check the road depth.
Yep.
And the base and whatever else they check, right?
You're correct, and he'll do a.
So what if it isn't up to standards?
We don't pay.
Okay.
I mean, it's pretty, I mean, the vendor doesn't get paid until the work is corrected.
Well, that's, you
Right.
know, so that's the, you know, the end game then, okay?
Well-
Or they come and redo it, right?
Right.
That's right.
I mean,
Right.
whatever works. Just to give you some idea of how confusing some of this can be, I pulled last year's Nelson Lane bid. And this was kind of an interesting little thing, because we had two bidders, obviously, Door County Highway Department, Northeast Asphalt. And on the first option, which was a 1.25 inch overlay with gravel shoulders, we had a bid of 873 tons from one vendor. The other vendor gave us a bid of 1,040 tons. That's a 130-some ton delta in terms of what's going on. Now, we gave them a second option, and this is why I think maybe going with Bodwin isn't such a bad idea. The second option was wedge and overlay, and in there, we had a 10-ton difference, which it wasn't as significant. But we need to get our arms around how this is being done to make sure that we're getting what we're paying for. I guess that's the...
As I understand, if my understanding is right, if we pursue, as I understand it, the LRIP, which as I understand is Local Roads Improvement Project, which is funded by the state. And as I understand it, there are requirements that we have to meet in order to receive those state aids. And at the end of the day, the state wants us to demonstrate to them that the road was built according to certain standards. By going with Bodwin, we're going to give them our bid package. It's not the bid package given to us by the contractor. All contractors bidding on our projects will get the same bid package with the same specifications laid out, and then they're going to respond to that. And we're going to be able to pay, to compare apples to apples. And an integral part of that will be if they don't meet the bid specs as concluded, and it's not been approved by Bodwin, they're not going to get paid. Now, if there's a dispute, there's a dispute, but at least we have a basis for going to them and saying, you haven't complied with the agreement. And frankly, to a certain extent, and I could be all wrong on this, I really don't care if they're going to put 100 tons or 150 tons. What I want to know is what the depth is on a compressed basis. Yep. And that's the only thing I'm concerned about. And I want them to say, this is the road that you have contracted to have built for you, and it's going, and based on our assessment, it's going to last the 10 or 15 or 20 years we expect it to. That's my, and yep. I think, and and what you're saying, Mr. Sherman, makes sense. If we can get the bid package prepared, then it becomes a much simpler process to simply, to repeat that bid package and send it out.
Well, at first they were making the bids, and then they started putting, one of them started putting the tonnage in there. So we thought, well, in order to compare apples to apples, we had the other ones, anybody require the tonnage too. Well, when, as the chairman said, when they come, way off like that, it's like, are we still getting the same amount of road, or are we, which ones? Somebody is making that 3 inches compacted down to 2.5 different, on a different area, so.
Well, I pulled Clark Lake too. I didn't realize I had done both of them, but on Clark Lake last year, which is one of the roads that potentially we'd do this year, we had a variance of 128 tons on a 1-inch overlay and a 77-ton variance on an 1.25 inches. So, and the price differential was $3,000. Now, I don't understand that. So, anyway, keep that in mind as we go into the road tour part. But I think it's something we probably want to go ahead with.
So did you say that, so Bodwin has given us an estimate of $2,300 just to do the specs and the plans and the bidding, the whole process for just Nelson Lane?
Correct.
And you said it would only be an extra $300 or $400 to do all of our road projects?
Yeah, I believe I have so many things with me tonight, Linda. I thought I brought a copy of it. He came back to me today, and basically that's what he said. And I thought I had brought the actual email with me.
That's okay. What was the estimate last year on Nelson Lane?
Nelson Lane.
Last year.
Yeah, I got it here. Nelson Lane was 1 inch was 53.3. 1.25 inches was 78.6. So the range went from 53 to 80,000
Right.
for 1 inch and a wedge and overlay with 1.25 inches.
And I'm pretty certain that LRIP requires
You said total reconstruction.
total reconstruction, but also compacted to, I don't know, maybe 2 inches.
You recall, Amy, that you were looking at it?
I don't have it in front of me, but
Well, yeah, but
it
if you're gonna
seems
do
to
a
me
total
it's thicker.
reconstruction, you don't wanna put
You're gonna
1
get
inch
that
down.
anyhow.
You're gonna get that anyhow, cause
So-
you wanna, you're gonna make a good base, you don't wanna put a cheap road on top of
Yeah.
it.
And there again, Bodwin could help us with that.
Yeah,
And
I
if
was,
we've been approved for 20,000 to help us on that stretch, so that would more than cover the engineering.
yeah, I mean, frankly, if he would, depending on what we do, if he was $300 or $400 more, I'd let him do the whole
I would too.
thing. Because, I mean, we're paying all of his upfront costs
Right.
for one road, and for pennies on the dollar, we could probably have him do the whole thing. But we can work through that. So, back to the road tour portion. Linda was kind enough to recap all of the activities from Saturday's fun. I guess that was it, huh? We ended up, in our discussions, identifying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 roads that had potential for being repaved in some way, shape, or form. There's no question we don't have enough money to do all of this. What I did is I looked at the bids from last year, I looked at the footage, and I did this pretty quickly, so if my numbers are off. And I calculated what the cost was for reconstruction versus a wedge and overlay and a overlay only. And then I took that times the amount of paving, the footage that we would have, and came up with some rough numbers. So I have no idea how accurate this is. It's just Kentucky windage, but Nelson Lane would come in at roughly right $107,000 to be reconstructed. And I based that on Bluff, which was 6,800 feet last year, and Nelson is 56, and came out to about $19 a foot to do the reconstruction with shouldering. Whitefish Bay from HH to Bluff, that's a wedge and overlay. We did a portion of that last year, so we actually have more footage here than need be. Came out to 5,700 feet. At $14.70 a foot would come in somewhere around $84,000. Clark Lake is 4,900 feet. I figured the cost there would be around $50,000 to $52,000. Peterson is an overlay from West Jorns to Walker, so up the hill. That's a little more than half a mile, 2,900 feet, and that would come in somewhere right around $30,000. And West Shore from Sylvan View to not to WD, it's Sylvan View to, I just noticed that, Sylvan View to Town Line. I have to check that then.
Town line?
Yeah, we were coming from Town Line.
No, Sullivan View, West Shore. It wouldn't hit Town Line.
West Shore Drive,
Did I
I
have
just
that
happen
backwards?
to have it here
I
somewhere.
thought it was Town Line to Sylvan
going-
View.
maybe going
I
up
mean, we're
that
going
road.
from Town Line on West Shore to Sylvan View.
Yeah, but Sullivan Circle doesn't,
Well, here,
Go
where
to
is it on
Town
the
Line.
map?
Okay.
I went Sylvan to West Shore Drive.
It's
Goes-
down here in the
No,
key.
should be West Shore Drive from WD to Sullivan.
Sylvan,
Sullivan.
yes.
Yes.
Sylvan.
From WD to West Sylvan.
On
Is
no,
that
no,
West,
from
West Shore
Town-
Drive.
From Town Line south, from Town Line, we started at Town Line, south to where Huey lives, which is Sylvan
Sullivan Circle.
Sylvan View.
Circle.
West,
West
west or
Sylvan.
east? East-west Sylvan Circle.
West
Okay,
Sylvan Circle.
so from Town Line south to West Sylvan View
Yep,
overlay.
yes. I
Okay.
don't know if the footage
Thank
is
you.
correct there, if it's a typo or what, I'll have to double check that. So anyhow, if we were to send all this out for bids, you got 1, 2, 3, you have 4 miles of roads, roughly right, which is more than we can afford to do. It's what we used to do 10 years ago. And you'd have 100, 200, 300 and some $1,000. I didn't add them all up.
Just below 300,000.
So we would need
What was the
to,
last estimate on?
Did you put 30,000 then for West Shore?
I had 27.6.
27?
But I don't know if the footage number's correct, Linda. And it's just a ballpark.
So that's 191.
So we could send this all out for bids. What we don't do this year, we could come back and look at next year. Or we could decide which one of these we are pretty sure we want to move ahead on and not go back and rebid it. And that's really.
Well, we're gonna do Nelson for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
So
$100,000.
that's for sure.
Yeah, Nelson is definite. There's no question there.
Right now, with the price of oil and gas and everything going up, all of these, estimates, you would figure they could be 10 to 20% more.
No, I couldn't, I don't disagree, Tony, I don't know.
I mean, we have to rebid them. I remember when I first
no,
got on the
we
board,
have-
we could do a mile, I think it was 76,000. And I've been, 4 years, it's already up over 100.
Yeah, no, I meant by bidding them, we could either go out and get estimates for the 5 miles and then pick and choose.
Right.
Or the 4 miles.
Oh, that
We
way,
can pick and choose now and say, let's do A, B, and C, which maybe is another way to go at it. I don't care, whatever your pleasure might be.
I would get bids on all 5 of them.
Pardon me?
Get bids on all 5 of them.
Except if we're gonna use Bodwin, why would we wanna put him through all the work
Yeah.
of specifying 5 roads when we know we're only going to do
We're gonna use
2
him
at
for-
best?
We're gonna use Baldwin for all of them now, I thought just Nelson.
Well, the conversation was, Tony, that it's 2,300 to do one. He said another $300 or $400, he could do them all. So instead of spending, just have them do them all this year and see what value there is, and then leave it at that.
That almost sounds like another town dump fiasco to me.
No.
I can't see how he can do them all for another 300.
Well, he puts all of his effort into the first one, right, in the spec and getting all the advertising, because he runs the ad, so he does all of that work. He has the same bidders involved, so incrementally, that's what he said, so I can only repeat what he told me.
I looked at his scope of services too. It says advertisements for bids will be prepared and questions answered, but he doesn't say that it's gonna cover the publication costs. So obviously, if you're listing 5 roads, it's probably gonna cost $600 to publish as opposed to $200 on 1 road or something like that. Just something to think about.
It's a good catch.
It doesn't say publication costs, it says will prepare the bid, so.
In either case, we have or may have to pay that portion.
Yeah.
Okay. So, in doing the 5, if we had him do it all, like you said, I don't think would make sense, so we should probably hone in on the vital few that we think needs to be done, and go from there.
Well, we had Clark Lake on the list last year, correct?
Right.
But that was for a total reconstruction. When is the last time we did just an overlay? I don't recall us doing just an overlay for a long, long time. It was usually total reconstruction or just patching.
No, we did a lot of wedge and overlay, which would bring the road grade back up and then put and which is what we have down there for Whitefish Bay. I know we've done overlays. It's not the recommendation of the county if we use them, because the road doesn't last as long, and eventually the road,
Gets the same cracks.
gets
that
the
were
same
underneath
cracks.
the back.
But if you took a look at Peterson, for example, now when we drove down Peterson to Jorns, the edge of the road was busted up in numerous places. So what do? We don't have enough money to reconstruct it, so either we leave it as is or we attempt to, overlay it and see what happens. And by the way, subject to all this stuff, I would get in the car and go out with Thad Ash and just get his opinion on these as well, just to make sure we're not, in his eyes, we're not spinning our wheels, so to speak. Because I have to get him in the vehicle to look at a couple of those places like Erdman, where we had the water over the road, and
Yeah.
a few of those other places, so he'll gladly go do that, so.
Well, and just looking at our budget for public works, which includes snow plowing, road construction, repairs, maintenance, or whatever, so we've already reached the limit on our snow plowing with 2 winter months to go, so I'm not sure that you want to plan to spend that full 200,000, you might need it somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, you decide where you guys want to go, and we'll figure it out from there.
Well, I think we should try to get quotes on all 5. And, you know, I think it makes sense for the chairman to, you know, once we get those quotes in, we'll have an idea of what we're looking at. And then depending on subsequent review, we may pick and choose among them. It gives us greater flexibility as to which ones you want to choose at the end of the day. Does Bodwin have any idea as to why these roads are so much more expensive? And, I mean, I appreciate, you know, I've been told repeatedly, well, petroleum prices have gone up. That's true. But 5 years ago, petroleum prices were over $100 a barrel. And they went down to $35 a barrel. And I haven't seen any decrease in the cost of those roads. And you can't have it both ways. No, I'm reacting, as everyone is, with tremendous frustration, but there's gotta be, when we go out and ask people to bid these, there's nothing that prevents us from having a sit-down conversation with them and say to us, you got to explain to us where your costs are and why your costs are, what are they like today versus 5 years ago or 3 years ago. I mean, we're purchasing the product from them, and I think we have every reason to want to know, clearly understand what's driving those costs.
Labor probably has something to do with it too.
Pardon me?
Labor probably has
Oh,
something to do with it.
I'm sure. The one time that I asked that question
Equipment.
a number of years ago, the answer I got was that the price of oil really doesn't play that greatly into the paving.
I believe it.
That they use what they referred to as a heavy oil that wasn't subject to the winds so much. But, you know, it's obviously got to be labor, benefits, whatever. I have no idea.
But even that, you know,
It's pretty extensive growth.
Well, I agree with you, and, you know, at least for the county, I mean, with Act 10 and the reduction in benefits that most municipalities have enjoyed, you know, it's hard for, I mean, I'm more than willing to be educated on this, but, you know, I would imagine that it would be very difficult for any municipality with collective bargaining agreements to demonstrate to me that you've seen year-on-year increase in their labor costs, because I just don't believe it. I mean, it's, you know, because whatever they may be paying more, whatever more they might be paying in terms of hourly compensation, they have more than made up in reduced fringe benefit costs. It's just, my only point is that they should be willing to open up their books and show us why we're seeing those year-on-year cost increases. There's a lot of hand-waving. And at the end of the day, it may very well be legitimate, but I'd like to be convinced of that.
It will be an interesting conversation to take part of, see what's up, I don't know how much. Yes?
There's only 2 vendors, correct, that you know, Marlene?
Right.
You got the county and you got Northeastern. Right. That pretty much answers your question, Jim, why the prices are so high. You got 2, not 4, not 10. You got 2.
A couple of years ago, we had a third vendor. I remember 2 years ago, and he was 10–15% higher than these.
But that's what I'm
I
saying.
mean, we did.
You got 2 vendors, you don't have 3 or 4 to choose from.
Right.
Or 10, when you get further south, you got 2.
I think that you raise a very legitimate point, and we've had some discussions about that. And, you know, the question I have is, is it possible to entice a vendor located elsewhere in the state to come into this part of the state? And, those are portable plants. I understand the issues we run into. Payne and Dolan, as I understand, owns Northeast, and they also, I don't know, is there a quarry within northeastern Wisconsin that they don't own?
Michael's owns some.
Pardon me?
Michael's owns some quarries.
Okay, well, good. What I'm saying is that perhaps we could talk to contractors from outside the area, and, all these guys know one another, but put them in touch with aggregate contractors and others to see if we can get a better price. I understand that we offer a relatively small amount of business, but could we work collaboratively with others so that we can offer a much larger package of work in order to get someone, to give us more favorable pricing?
Well, when we advertise for a bid, when it's published, there are services out there that will contact the various contractors and say, okay, look at this bid, look at this bid, look at this bid. So I'm sure other asphalt companies have access to their bids, but they're probably saying it's not worth our while to pack up our hot mix plant, find a location for it, get a permit, and then pack it up for one road or two roads.
I think the idea that Jim's working on is that you could get like the Wisconsin Towns Association group for Door County together and say, if we were going to try this, which admittedly would be a stretch to get everybody to agree, but I think if you said, okay, Liberty Grove, Egg Harbor, and the rest of them, we're going to go and present 15, 20, 25 miles of roads. Now you have a chance to get somebody to come in because the job is big enough for them to go through all that headache. But otherwise, yeah, we're just not going to make any headway there. But it's a discussion that could be had at a WTA meeting and see if there would be any interest. We tried the one for just splitting the cost of publishing the board of review, and we couldn't accomplish that. And it was only a couple $100.
Seriously?
Yeah. So
Mostly because of the timing of everyone's board of review. It had to be within a certain amount of time, and theirs either fell early or late.
We did try at least to see if we could pocket $1 or $2 here, but.
But then that's a catch-22 too, because, people that you get another vendor in from outside, then the people that live here and pay taxes that work for the county and work for Northeast Asphalt are traveling out long ways away to do their work. There's quite a few people that work for the county that live in Sevastopol, and there's quite a few people that work for Northeast Asphalt that live in Sevastopol too, so.
So it's not an easy topic, let's put it that way. I think it's the same thing that you have labor problems up here. We got others, just on the same category. I don't think the county's in any major rush for our work. From what I heard, they're so far behind right now that, this is.
They're working 12 hours a day.
So, on none of these roads, other than if Mr. Bocek falls into his road, I'll get that one fixed.
For the construction
It's a
business,
crater.
It was a known fact, if you've got a lot of work, more than you can handle, you'd bid the job real high. If you got it, you're gonna make a good buck. If you didn't get it, well, that's good, we got enough work. And I'm not saying that's what's happening here, but some of that plays into it too.
Oh, it does, no question.
All right, so let's try and reach some conclusion while we're here.
If we got bids for all 5, would that help us for next year's planning?
Probably.
It probably could, and it's kind of 6 of one, half dozen the other. The other one is once they bid it this year, they know where to go next year. I don't know. Maybe not.
I just
I don't know.
threw that out there.
Obviously, we can't do 4 miles of roads.
No.
We're gonna do at most a couple.
2
And
miles.
we're either gonna take on a West Shore, a Peterson, and throw in a, Nelson Lane or whatever and tackle some of it, or we can get the price, reevaluate where we want to go. I'll spend some time with Thad, take around and get his opinion on whether or not an overlay is sufficient, not sufficient. And we can tweak these and say, okay, we want to go push this back a month, and in June come back and say, you know, here's the recommendations at least on each road, and then decide how we want to handle it.
If we're not going to use Bodwin for the other projects, and we're just going to use him for Nelson Lane, could we proceed with that so that he could get his bid put together and all that? And maybe we'd have a number and know what we need to, you know, conserve for that project or not?
Well, my take on it would be, if he's really $300 or $400 more for doing it all, I'd invest the money for the one time and get it and see what we have.
Okay.
And if that, I mean, and I can call him back, but that would be my take on it. Let him do it once, establish whether there's value there or not, and that we're getting what we paid for. And I'll call John Kolodziej and ask him, if he thinks a 1 month delay is gonna slow anything up, given where they're at, I don't think there should be a problem. And none of these roads are in that bad a condition that they couldn't wait, 30 or 40 days.
Well, what if, we know we're gonna do Nelson Lane.
Correct.
So that one is already, should be on the list. And then there's 4 left. Why don't we just take 2 of them? Get them, get a bid on them, because realistically, we're gonna do Nelson Lane and one other one, and that's gonna be about it.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you could do a Peterson and a West Shore on an overlay, and you could still get away with doing Nelson Lane. But otherwise, you're looking at Whitefish Bay and Nelson Lane, or Clark, somewhere in there.
Yeah, so realistically, we're gonna do 2 roads this year. So if we got 3 bids, let the other 2 go till next year. So, I guess, let's just go every other one. We'll take Nelson.
Peterson, if you want the Peterson and West Shore, which are the lesser, the 2, or lesser of the 5 that Dan said, so you accomplish 3 roads. You got Nelson already, you'd accomplish 3 roads.
Correct.
Would that be I guess, versus just doing 2?
I guess what I was thinking is if we got bids for 3, we're not gonna do more than 3. If we can fit it in the budget and do all 3, that would be great. Just not get bids for all 5 and then throw 2 out, so. Just to make some kind of a starting point so we can keep moving on.
How do the rest of you feel, one way or the other? You have a favorite? I mean, I have no trouble with Nelson Lane, Peterson, and West Shore, that's fine.
Okay.
Or I can do one or the other, all.
I'm okay with it. It gives us a little cushion.
For some snow plowing that might come in yet, so.
Yeah.
Okay, then what I will do is, I'm still gonna bring this back next month because I'm gonna get with Thad. There are some areas that need repair and get some ballpark numbers on what those are gonna cost. And then get his opinion on the overlay for Peterson and West Shore, because that could change our bids. And we still would have maybe enough money depending on what we're doing, and then engage Bodwin for the 3 and say, have at it, see what we got. So, okay. Good enough? Any other? And I'll follow up with all these other little things that need repair, fixing, etc.
Just for context, what did it cost us this last snowfall of the year?
$35,000 for the last snowfall. It was cheap.
Okay. Out of a $100,000 budget for the year.
Yeah. We spent $96,000 for the.
98 roughly.
Well, we're not paying for your shoveling. Is that included in
No,
it?
that's not included
Okay,
here.
all right. Yeah, we're in great shape as long as it doesn't snow next winter. All right. So, bring that back. New business, we've already taken care of the McCabe's. Jane, terrific. All right.
Oh, I just found my LRIP thing. It's 1.25 inches compacted.
Okay.
For a whole reconstruction.
Resurfacing, yep.
Okay.
All right. We have no resolutions and ordinances. We do have the financial reports here for your perusal. You have the fund balances. You have the budget versus actual. And Amy, when I looked through the budget versus actual, I had one about player sponsor income at the park. Negative 1,000. We had 1,000 in the budget. It's showing 0. Didn't you have money collected in advance, I thought?
That went to a different category.
Oh, it did? Correctly, or,
Maybe.
pardon me? Maybe?
I'm not sure.
Okay, well, that's all
I will
right.
look at that for you, and I will get back
That's
to
all
you on
right.
that.
Just one thing I noticed, because I thought I was, whatever. So, so you have the budget versus actual, year-to-date. I'm sorry, here I'm slowing up. You have the transaction list by date as well. And taking a look at all of those, we'd need a motion just to accept those and put them on file.
Well, I was looking at the budget actual too, and I think
Okay.
it's, capital asset replacement was a double negative. I'm not sure
Oh,
where
yes.
that's sitting.
Yeah, you brought that up the other
And,
day. 14,000 negative.
likewise with the state DNR aids.
That
Under
14,000
revenue.
was for the well that got paid for this year, but allocated last year, so we had to make a journal entry for Shank.
Yeah, I thought it was a journal entry.
Mm-hmm. And the same thing with
DNR?
the state DNR, yes.
Okay.
Sure, you find a $15,000 variance, I come up with 1,000, and, she
Yeah, I
knows
know
the
what it
answer.
is.
All right, fine, I give up. Okay, motion to accept those, and then we'll have the treasurer's, oh, let's hold on that for a minute. Let's hear the treasurer's report first.
All right, as Dan stated, the town received the bill for the remainder of the snow removal so far this year, and adding that in, we have used 98% of the money that we budgeted for the snow removal. We did receive our franchise income from Charter last week, and the town's CD that was considered the Cedars CD is coming due as of May 25th, 2018. We have 10 days after that date to decide what we want to do with it. We could either let it roll over for another term or place it elsewhere. I believe that if we move the money to the local government investment pool, we would probably get a better rate of return, seeing as the current rate of return that we're getting on it is 0.80%, and currently the local government investment pool is paying 1.73.
But the renewal wasn't even 0.8, was it?
They couldn't give us
Oh, that's right, they can't tell us it's a secret.
Correct.
Till after.
Till after.
You've already signed
Yep,
up.
after
Yeah.
we signed it.
And we
So-
had to wheel and deal to get the 0.8.
Yeah,
Does anyone have thoughts there on moving or not moving?
I don't have any problem moving
Coming
it to
up.
local government.
doubling the
We're
interest.
doubling the interest. Easily accessible, no
could I put some personal money in there?
No. You can, but it's not coming
Yeah,
back out.
great, thank you.
No problem.
All right, so no one has an issue if we move that funds, then
Okay.
why don't you go ahead and do that, Amy?
Will do.
Okay. So let's go back to a motion just to approve the financial reports.
So moved.
Motion by John, seconded by
I second.
Jim. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, all right, good to go. Next is the approval of vouchers, bills, and claims. Has everyone had a chance to look at that and sign? Everybody's good? Then we would need a motion to approve those as well for April through May.
I'll make a motion to approve the vouchers, bills, and claims.
Motion by John, second by Linda, to approve the vouchers, bills, and claims April 18th through May 21st, 2018. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried, thank you. Oral committee, commission reports and/or minutes. We don't have anything actual written, so unless you have something you want to update orally?
Sure, I do.
Okay.
We have 2 town employees, park employees, and one sitting back there, Mr. Gary Londo. He is agreed to work a couple, 2-3 days a week at the park. We've also got Gilbert Annis. He's working, trying to get a full 40 hours in. And if you go over and look at the park now, I know it's young in the season, but sometimes it's nice to have a couple older gentlemen, especially this year, because I can't be there much, and I think they're doing a great job so far. I mean, you don't have to worry about them not showing up for work. Not saying we had in the past, you know what I mean? But again, we've got Gilbert and Gary, they're doing a great job right now.
No, it looks good.
And
Good.
so I think Arlen has trained Gary very well.
She wants,
I'm trying to get him about 40 hours, so I have
40 hours more money.
you want him out of the house, right?
And Clark Lake,
We'll pay him not to do that. Just kidding.
good news is, we haven't had any rainouts yet. High school's happy, the fields have been kept in good shape. We have one more baseball game, if you want to see I would say a pretty good baseball game Thursday night. Our baseball team's hosting a regional game. And again, I'm gonna put a plug in Wednesday nights. The Rudy Tutors of Institute start Wednesday night, little 4K and 5K. Guys and gals, you wanna see some fun, go over and watch them. Almost every night of the week, we've got teams, Little League teams, Babe Ruth, Legion, Institute Cubs practicing or playing in the park. That's what we wanna see. We wanna see people using the park. I was down by the dam today, and the dam is at 9-1 today. And for this time of year with the rain and the snow melt off, we're getting it down, but we're still pretty close to where we're supposed to be.
Yeah, that's good, because when we were on the tour, it was 927, right?
Pardon?
I think it was 927 when we were at the tour, so that's Saturday till now is over an inch.
And, I went down to, because we also changed from the summer grates, winter grates would let a lot more flow. Mark put the summer grates in and one board to, to keep it. We don't want it to get, right now it can be between 8.5 and 9. The reality, if we get 9 or lower, people can't get their boats in and out. I mean, it's pretty tough. And this weekend, if it's nice out, there can be a lot of people putting their boats in. So we keep it 9 and above. Everybody's happy. We don't get any complaints. So.
Are the portables in, Tony, at the beach in Clark Lake?
Yes, portables are in. Yep. Good point. And I think Wednesday, Gary maybe can correct me on this, sometime this week, we're gonna put the buoys in at the Clark Lake Beach. So that'll be done.
So Gary will be in a swimsuit. Cool.
Gary will be in his swimsuit. The only thing is, we've gotta watch Gilbert because he's only 5 foot nothing.
Yeah, that could
We
be a
can't let Gilbert go down. Gary, that's your job. Make sure Gilbert doesn't get out too far.
He doesn't see over the top of his waders. I mean, that's all right, done, Tone?
Yep.
Okay, anyone else? Hearing none, we will move on to County Board report from Linda, District 14 Supervisor.
I better keep it brief, huh? Yeah. Okay, on May 3rd, zoning held amendment hearings again, zoning text amendments. As you know, we've had a lot of changes coming down on the zoning ordinance and the shoreline and wetland and all that. So anyway, it's up before for ratification by the county board tomorrow. Some of the changes, definitions of a lot and what is permitted on that lot, including condominium unit lots, non-conforming uses and structures, farm markets, it's eliminated because it's considered a retail/commercial business, so there's not going to be such a thing as a farm market anymore. It would be considered commercial. Roadside stands, again, changes. They can be larger. Right now, they can be 192 square feet, and after tomorrow, if it's ratified, they'll be up to 400 square feet, and that includes Roadside stands such as people selling wood, campfire wood, vegetables and things like that. They're talking about limiting it to items produced on that property, although that's not always been enforced, especially with campfire wood. And the big one, they're going to disallow tasting rooms in breweries, wineries, in non-commercial zoning districts.
Nice timing.
Those that have a conditional use now are grandfathered in. But anyway, like I said, we'll keep an eye on it because they're probably gonna be approved tomorrow. You've heard about the housing study that the Door County Economic Development Corporation undertook, and they had good turnout for the open house up in Egg Harbor. Still waiting for the results. So they had hired this consultant to analyze price points and you know, how many availability of stock and identify the needs and things like that. So that'll be interesting when that comes out. The bug station, the Brussels Union Gardner EMS/new fire station is almost complete. So that means that our county is covered from the north end all the way to the south end when it comes to EMS services. Correct, John?
Correct.
Yep. Okay, and then that's about it. County board meets at 9 a.m. tomorrow.
All right. Thank you, Linda.
You're welcome.
We're getting close to the end here. License and permits. You have the safe built listing of permits, and you also have the town report of new construction, very minimal, at least this month. Not much in the way, but no chicken coops either, so we've made progress. We've now switched over to storage buildings, so we're okay there. Correspondence, we have the fire report from City Sturgeon Bay for March, and we also have April in there.
This is a different format now than what we're used to, correct?
Yes.
Right.
They
They
went to
changed
this
the-
new
It's
one.
kind of hard to understand.
Yes.
It's parallels, I shouldn't say parallels, but it's similar to what they give us annually in terms of where they're at. The thing that's interesting to me when you look at this is, you know, how many non-fire related calls there are. I mean, you almost got to, you know, look through 2 months to find someplace where there was a fire. You know, there's a ton of responses for everything under the sun but fires, and at the same time, he's detailing, you know, what the firefighters are doing during their hours, either training or rebuilding or repairing. So,
But it's kind of nice because then it tells you which the east side calls and the
Calls
west side
versus-
calls,
right.
and then Sevastopol's calls. So I think it's one format will fit the whole, you know, instead of making 2 or 3 reports.
yeah.
Oh, I see, so it's going to the city
I think
and
it's
to the
going to the
town of
city,
Sturgeon
too.
Bay, and the town of Sturgeon Bay.
Correct.
Okay.
All right. You have the listing of those are permitted properties for the room tax, and that list will continue to grow, obviously. And I forgot this, I don't know how this came off my calendar, but the State of Wisconsin Office of the Governor had a proclamation declaring it Municipal Clerks Appreciation Week. Would you put this on our calendar next year so that we could stand and,
I
you know,
will give you an email. Send you an
Thank you.
email. I'm good
Thank
at
you.
that.
Should we give her a collected?
we're gonna give her 5 copies of this back.
Well,
So-
especially since we're doing, what, 6, 7 elections this year? That's a lot of elections.
The humble Linda never
Thank
did this to
you,
us.
Amy.
We appreciate her efforts on our and your behalf. So,
Absolutely.
sorry we missed that. Next year, we will nail
No
that down.
worries.
And it appears that the League of Women Voters also appreciates her. There's a letter there as well indicating their support. You have a listing in the Door County Sheriff Incident Report total. Good old Sevastopol's right up there, number 2.
But you have to remember, we're
We're the-
double, triple, quadruple population of some of these other towns, so,
That's true.
yeah.
We even
Very
got
true.
kids that go in
Do we have
there.
anything that's more granular? Are these, I mean, everything from drug arrests to
Yeah, anything
speeding
and everything.
tickets?
Yeah, it encompasses the world. It's anything that I think comes across their radio.
There are detailed reports available if you.
I didn't include this in the package because it came in at the last minute, but just to acknowledge, we appreciated the Bay Shore property owners who went out and cleaned up their neighborhood for us, did a large section of Bay Shore Drive, and they sent us a letter notifying us of that fact, and we thank them for their efforts in making our neighborhood look good. And that concludes the correspondence. So from announcements, we have the open book scheduled for Friday, June 1st at 10 a.m. Your chance to come in and take a look at your real estate taxes and the taxes of anyone around you that you would like to compare to. The Board of Supervisors meeting is Monday, June 18th at 7 p.m. The Board of Review is Monday, June 25th at 1 p.m. And if you're going to come to the Board of Review, there is a form that we'd like you to fill out first. Board of Supervisors meeting is moved, if we mentioned it last month, to Monday, July 23rd, because Amy will be in a class in Green Bay. And if anybody has anything that we haven't already talked about that needs to be added to next month's agenda, either let me know now or during the month, and we'll put it on. And hearing nothing from those of you, would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
I second.
Motion by Tony, second by Jim. Any further discussion before we vote? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.